Earlier this week, the New York Times filed a motion in New York State Court to attempt to stay the discovery efforts of Project Veritas pending the outcome of their appeal in the ongoing lawsuit in which New York Times has been sued by Project Veritas for defamation. New York Times has lost at their initial opportunity to attempt to dismiss the Project Veritas claims under New York's new anti-SLAPP lawsuit. They're now challenging that on appeal, and Project Veritas is looking at all that juicy discovery from New York Times. Now New York Times is deathly afraid of that discovery, and they are trying to stop it. Let's talk about what's going on and why discovery in these matters is so important, and why Project Veritas really wants to nail the New York Times to their wall of shame on this issue. I'm Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. I'm a lawyer. I'm also a legal and political commentator on YouTube and on Odyssey. Wherever you're watching, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of this information. All right? You got to get the information. Here we go. This is from Project Veritas' own website. So, we are going to read it with the understanding that it is extremely biased in favor of Project Veritas, but that does not make it bad info. In fact, most of the information is correct, albeit some minor hyperbole thrown in. Let's take a look at it. This will be linked down in the comments below, or in the description below. And if you check out right up here, there's a playlist for the other videos about Project Veritas that I've been doing, and all of that stuff. So, without further ado, I will point out where they're being hyperbolic, but let's take a look at the bullet points to start, and then we'll move through the discussion from there. So, update: New York Times files motion for stay of discovery process in Project Veritas' defamation case as court battle continues. Project Veritas learned last week that New York Times has filed an unusual 16-page motion for stay of discovery in Project Veritas' ongoing defamation case against the old gray lady. Let's quickly point out the minor hyperbole of them saying it's unusual. Them requesting a stay for discovery is not unusual, nor is it not expected. Or at least it should be expected. And here's why. In anti-SLAPP statutes vary from state to state. Let me talk about what those are real quick. So a SLAPP lawsuit is called a strategic lawsuit against public participation. The idea is that let's say you went on Yelp and left a negative review of a restaurant, and then they threatened to sue you, or did in fact sue you for that negative review. But that review is your right to give an opinion on some experience that you had or some place that you went to. And so they're trying to prevent you from exercising that right to say, hey, the soup was cold or whatever. That's what a strategic lawsuit against public participation is. So anti-SLAPP laws were developed to prevent typically highly powerful organizations or people with access to resources or access to the legal system from stopping the speech of people who may not be similarly situated. You can imagine if some random middle-class worker accuses a big corporation of something that they had a bad experience with, and that big corporation brings a whole bunch of lawyers down their throat, that's a bad thing. And courts are trying to curtail that, and legislatures are trying to curtail that without making the little guy spend $20, $30, $40, $50,000 defending against a lawsuit that shouldn't exist. That's the purpose of anti-SLAPP lawsuits. However, that sort of noble purpose has gone right out the window with anti-SLAPPs, and now they are used to shut down any sort of complaint that someone may have that may be legitimate about the actions or speech of another person. Not all speech is fully protected. You cannot lie for the purposes of destroying someone. That's defamation law 101. And in this case, the New York Times is trying to destroy Project Veritas through lies. That's what Project Veritas's claim is. They actually look like they've got a good, solid claim that New York Times knowingly lied about what they were saying about Project Veritas. So they bring the lawsuit. The reason that lawsuits get expensive, however, is discovery. Discovery costs a ton of money. Depositions require you to sit down with a lawyer for hours and hours and hours of time answering a bunch of questions. And then you need to typically depose the other side. So you need to hire a lawyer to have them ask hours and hours of questions to the other party. Anytime you're paying a lawyer for hours, plural, of work, it starts to get expensive. And it starts to get really expensive when those hours tack up to 6 to 8 hours and you got tons of lawyers from both sides in these rooms doing these depositions. So that is the idea behind staying discovery, is stopping the expensive process. Now, some states' anti-SLAPP laws actually have stays of discovery built into them, like Texas, for example. Once you file an anti-SLAPP motion in a Texas lawsuit, discovery is stopped for this very purpose. So all of this is to say that basically, at the end of the day, this isn't that unusual of a filing. Now, that doesn't mean I think they should get it. But the idea of an anti-SLAPP is to stop discovery. They feel that their anti-SLAPP was wrongfully denied, and so now they're filing a motion to stop that discovery as if their anti-SLAPP would have been approved, and that's the idea that they're going with this appeal, obviously. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean they're entitled to a stay of discovery or that I'm on their side. In fact, I definitely want their stay of discovery denied. I want this lawsuit to go all the way to the end. I think the New York Times has had its run of lying about other people and specifically lying about competitors. To me, that makes this even more egregious. So now we move on. After achieving a historic victory in which Veritas made it past the Times motion to dismiss New York State Supreme Court, discovery and under oath depositions were set to begin soon. It was also within this historic legal ruling that the Times reporters and named defendants Maggie Astor and Tiffany Sue were called deceptive and accused of practicing misinformation. Times, however, now seeks to delay the process of discovery by any means necessary. Veritas founder and CEO James O'Keefe pointed out the hypocrisy in a recorded response, noting the irony of how an organization built on asking questions has now pivoted to evading them. Veritas has won every case it has litigated and welcomes the idea of total transparency, an idea the New York Times no longer seems to embrace. And that is where we need to stop reading the article at this point. Again, check it out on your own below, but let's talk about what's going on here and why this is so important. The New York Times is a news reporting organization, and they have, as sort of their founding ideal, this idea of transparency. Get to the bottom of the issue. Ask the questions that matter to the people who know the answers, and get those answers out to the public. This is the news. Disseminate the information. Use people's ability to get access to various people or various departments and get that information out from behind closed doors and into the public's eye, right? So the public can make their own decisions. That's kind of the romanticized ideal of what the newsroom maybe used to be. It's not what it is anymore. It's not what it is anymore. Now it is arguably a propaganda machine or any number of other labels you want to put on it. But in this case, the New York Times is going after Project Veritas, and they have said things that seem to be completely untrue in their process of going after them. And that might be because Project Veritas is doing that sort of news ideal that New York Times used to be known for. Get people inside organizations, get people on tape, get people on video, and get that info out to the public. And to do so through the hard work of just investigative journalism and getting good sources. Now, say what you will about Project Veritas. A lot of people don't like them. A lot of people don't like their methods, but they do this thing, and they do it within their field of journalism, and other organizations are not a big fan of that. But we have to ask why. That being said, what Veritas has professed to do in this case is something that I believe should be done all over the place. They are talking about doing the depositions and releasing those depositions to the public. That is the goal. Discovery is the goal in many of these lawsuits, especially between both parties with significant amounts of resources where the resources don't really matter. You're not going to drain the New York Times of funding through this type of lawsuit, and Project Veritas has the backers to go ahead and take a lawsuit like this without taking a huge financial hit either. So you're not in a battle of resources here. You're in a battle of information, and that information is the truth. Depositions are given under oath, and the parties typically have to answer the questions. You get broad leeway in asking the questions. They basically just have to be somehow related to the underlying issues. So if Project Veritas can get New York Times employees on film under oath talking about their journalistic practices, impugning their journalistic integrity, and talking about things that sure look like lies and misrepresentations about Project Veritas, New York Times stands to suffer some real hits to its credibility, which has taken a little bit of a pounding over the past several years already. And that is something we need to do. News organizations are not above questions to their credibility, their ethics, their integrity, or their methods. But for so long, they have hid under the guise of the First Amendment, which I do believe should protect news organizations. They have hidden behind that barrier to act in ways that are not actually appropriate or truthful. And when the goal is to get the actual truth out to the public, then you better be bringing the truth with you when you come out. That's what I think. What do you guys think? Drop a comment down below, and we'll talk to you next time. Peace. Peace.